What is up, everybody? I wonder if you can hear me already. YouTube usually takes a while. Am I live in Instagram? I don't know. Doesn't seem to be live. YouTube, give me a shout out if you're watching. I gotta get my hair fixed, man. The little hair I have left. I'm starting Instagram. Waiting for Gennaro. Hey, Alan, how's it going, man? You are always with us. Thanks for the support. Let me start waving to people in Instagram. Hey guys, how's it going? So as usual, we're doing Instagram here on top and YouTube here in the bottom. If you guys on Instagram can, go to the YouTube channel so that you can smash that like button and all that. So that you know, you're gonna help us with the algorithms and all of that. That thing that happens in YouTube.
What is up? We're live on YouTube, Felipe.
Yeah, and on Instagram, you gotta join me there. I'm
Nice.
currently
Oh yes, I've got to go through Jazz Cafe.
Cool, Max. So you're from Sweden.
Yes, actually jazz.
Which place in Sweden? That's supposed to be really cold, isn't it? So everyone, welcome to tonight's or today's or tomorrow, whatever time it is in your place. I'm gonna wave at you, Gennaro. Welcome to today's live. We're gonna continue talking about the topic of the week, which is fruit systems and, you know, producing fruit in. Holy fuck, my chair just went down, man. What? I think I accidentally hit the lever with my leg and it's crushing my leg. What the bollocks, man. I never thought I'd be in an accident doing a live at home.
No,
what a situation.
Broke and everything, but it's all right, yeah?
No, yeah, it's fine. I hit it with my leg. Whew. Okay. We just had someone on Instagram, Fernando Enrique. He said he doesn't understand English very much, but he said a revolution is agroforestry. Yes, the revolution is agroforestry, like our teacher Namaste says. That's a good one.
It is.
Cool. So in YouTube, we've got Garrett online. We've got Francisco Zanella, Maxar, who's a Swedish guy from Stockholm. Alan, who's always with us. Wolfbird, Homestead. And that's it. And we already have a question from Wolfbird Homestead. I think we can address that in a little bit. But first, let's just do a proper intro. Guys, we're having this week. We're actually producing an ebook about fruit production agroforestry system, and it should be released to our patron community members in this weekend. So this is going to be pretty fun. We're excited about it. We hope that you guys who who are in the Patreon community like it, and it will be helpful to you. So, the topic of the week is fruit production. And so we had a live on, when was it? Tuesday or was it Monday? I think it was Tuesday.
I believe, right? I think it was Monday.
Monday. Yeah. Well, that live is available in Instagram. It's available in YouTube as well. So if you guys haven't watched it, do it. And yeah, that's it, man. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking us about, where they can have like downloadable, like PDFs and, notes on agroforestry, something more like, academic, something they can download and, bring it up and just bullet points. And so we've come up with a series. We're going to do, several topics in these ebooks on several topics. And then, we're going to do like a hot topic of the week. And we've done the fruit production this week. And we're going to end it all off with the ebook and then a webinar as well with the Patreon crew. So it's really cool, just extra series. We're always trying to think of different ways of bringing the content. This has been great to interact with you guys. We've given you all the margins, all the media to question, to put your questions forward and, bring us your doubts. And then, this helps us actually shape, what is it that you need to know? What is it that people mostly looking for? And that's really helped us, in developing these ebooks and things like that. So we're just excited to be here, sharing this information as you are, if you're interested, listening. So we appreciate you being here too.
Yeah. I'm actually, I think we could start and already start talking about it by answering your Wolfbird Homestead question. If you guys are watching on Instagram, Wolfbird Homestead just asked in YouTube, can you talk on how you prepare your avocado pits for planting? Just eat a ripe avocado and put it in the soil. Well, man, if you have this amazing rich black soil of 60 centimeters of depth of black soil and a huge amount of organic matter and a forest well established, sure, you can just press the seed into the soil, but that's not usually the case. So when we're starting out, and this goes for any fruit that you're planting, you really want to prepare a nest very well. One of the most important things when you're talking about fruit and any perennial species for that matter, but fruit especially, is that you want to have a decompacted soil. So, and we're usually working in soils that have a compacted layer somewhere, usually between 20 to 50, 60 centimeters. There's going to be a compacted layer where many fruit trees will have a hard time, passing through that layer with their roots. So soil preparation has that purpose, right? To prepare, to decompact soil. That's one of the main goals of soil preparation. So you really need to make sure that that soil is broken down until you pass that compacted layer. So it's important to prepare the soil with depth. And of course, you're going to take the opportunity, since you're going to be opening up the soil, to incorporate some manure, some lime if needed, rock dust, bone meal, whatever it is that you have available with you.
Yeah.
So basically, always prepare a very good nest for your fruit tree, regardless of what tree it is, and regardless of the size of the seedling, because many people think that I'm just going to open up a hole big enough to fit. In the case of seedling, I know you're asking about a seed, but in the case of a seedling, they're going to open up the hole only big enough to fit in the soil block of the seedling. But that's a mistake. We prepare the soil to incorporate enough fertilizer to feed our plant from the very beginning.
Yeah, it will vary the size of this nest, of this, this hole that the ideal situation is obviously the bigger the better, right? The more information you can have when you're deeper down. But you know, we recommend, you know, 50 by 50, maybe 60 depth, right? Depends where your compacted soil is. But I mean, it's also related to, you know, are you using like machinery to open these holes and things? So, you know, we try say, you know, at the very least 30 centimeters by 30 wide, you know, and then if you are using those machinery, there's no reason why you can't go real deep, you know, on preparing that bed. But, you know, out here, I like doing them 50 by 50 by 50. But sometimes if we've got too many of them to do, I let the boys off and I say, you know, 40 by 40 by 40 is basically like the minimum we like to do it in-house here. The avocados as well, just on that note, when you're planting by seed, yeah, you know, if you roll one avocado seed on the floor, more often than not, you see that the way it lands, you know, the way it stops is like lying down. You know, if you've got them kind of oval avocado seeds, it's going to stop lying down. And that's how they like to be received on the ground. You know, you wouldn't plant it standing up. As you roll it, as it stops, that's the way it likes to be planted. So, you know, you just stick that in the ground. And it doesn't have to be too deep. If, you know, if your soil is here, you just plant it just as deep as where it just needs to be soil height, you know, so with the top of the seed, it's actually just touching the top of the soil there. And then you got your mulching on top of that or whatever, right? So don't have to go too deep, avocado. And this lying down information, we get that with a lot of kind of fruits and seeds. We really want the sprout to come and then grow, you know, it forms that elbow where, you know, it grows from the seed and then it forms that elbow so it can be more resistant to you know, wind and things like that. So, you know, when it grows from the side and then it makes that curve and it goes up, forms an elbow, which makes it more stable, you know, for long term.
Yeah, about using the rototiller, man. Like the rototiller is never gonna get that deep. So sure, you can use the rototiller, but after using the rototiller, you still want to dive a bit deeper. And the tool you use for that is a post hole digger, right? You've got manual post hole diggers if the area is small, and then you've got motorized post hole diggers. So, you know, these will make sure that you open up and break those compacted layers. You have to break the compacted layer. You know, if it's you need to figure it out how deep it goes, and you need to break through it. You know, if it's 40, if it's 50, if it's 60, it doesn't matter. You need to break it through. Otherwise, your plant will have a harder time deepening those roots. And since you're in California, in Sacramento, I understand it's somewhat of a dry climate. Even more important that you need to have those roots down there. So yeah, Max is asking, can you do the same as avocado seeds with mango? Yes, you can do this. This soil preparation that we're talking about goes for any fruit tree that you can think of. All right, you can use the same idea. You want to break up the compaction in the soil, you know, so you need to go deep and you want to incorporate some manure and fertilizer. So you can do the exact same process. And this tip that Gennaro gave of putting seeds lying down, this goes for all the species. You want to do that with every single species. You want to have seeds on the horizontal, not vertical. People think, oh, but this is where the roots sprout, so I'm going to put that part down. No, you want them lying down so that they will do like a knee or an elbow.
I would hate to see us prepare such a gorgeous bed nest and just plant a seed in it. So, you know, whenever you're going to plant a mango, avocado seed, you know, make good use of that healthy nest. You know, you've prepared 50 centimeters, so there's an opportunity to make, like, you know, its own little ecosystem, that 50 centimeters wide worth of ecosystem for you to really enrich in with service plants, vegetables, and, you know, and even things like papayas, you know, even other fruit trees that come at an earlier stage. I even plant a lot of bananas with avocados, you know, and then have the bananas work there for a couple of years. So do take the opportunity to make good use of the whole nest all around it and create that nice ecosystem where you've already manured it, you've already enriched that, you've already fluffed it out. So make good use of that, and that will only help the avocado's health, and and it stimulate for that seed to be well looked after with the service plants from diverse weathers, whether it's wind, heavy rains, or heavy sun. It will have that ecosystem around him, and probably like some placenta plants, emerge and growing just before him, so we can give him a bit of stimulation as well, so he can run after that plant and really grow with a lot of vigor.
Yeah, that's it. And I was one of the things that I've been thinking about. We're talking about fertilizers and all that, and it's very important when you're starting out in poor soils, degraded soils. Wolfbird was talking about how he has unlimited access to compost, so that's really good to incorporate in the soil. But never forget to cover the soil with organic matter afterwards. That's like #1 priority. And if you can, like the best fertilizer, the best long-term fertilizer for fruit trees is having wood covering your soil. So this will create an incredible environment for root growth, for all the microorganisms that associate with plants and with your fruit trees. Fruit trees, they need to associate with microorganisms. They need for microorganisms to be degrading organic matter around them so that they can get those vitamins, those nutrients, those minerals, which will be released into the soil through the decomposition of organic matter. So you really need to create that perfect environment, and wood is the best fertilizer for fruit trees. If you have abundant wood, make sure you line many logs, or if you have shredded wood, make sure you line a lot of organic matter around your fruit tree. Be generous. Don't be afraid of putting organic matter. Just put as much as you want. Your fruit tree will thank you. And of course, you have all the benefits besides stimulating microorganisms. You're going to be accumulating more water while the organic matter decomposes it creates biostructures in the soil that will make it easier for roots to expand. So this is the #1 priority, having your soil covered. And I like to say that your soil must be covered, just to link to what Gennaro just said. The soil must be covered with organic matter, and then you want your organic matter covered with living plants. So it comes in very handy what he was just talking about, making use of all that nest that you prepare to grow the plants that we call the placenta, which are the ones which will nourish the growing forest. So these are the short cycle plants, the annual plants, maize, beans, squash, cassava, vegetables, pigeon pea, jack beans. All of these belong to the placenta because they are those first plants, and they will create that green mat around our fruit trees. And we really want that because it's going to really enrich life in the soil and accumulate carbon, because the more green you have in the soil, the more organic, the more carbon you are sequestering and feeding back into the soil. And weeds are going to show up in your system regardless, whether you want it or not. So you might as well choose the weeds you want to show up, and plant these short cycle plants that will create this nice green mat all over your soil. So this is important.
Yeah, sometimes you scale to a point where it's not easy to get this organic matter in, so do get, if you have a project that there's a certain scale and you're unable to get soil covering, which is key, which is the most important thing. If you're unable to do that, try to get just enough to go around your nest, at least where you've softened out that soil, just to look after at least locally, and get your service plants to cover, the soil in the future. Plant a lot of service plants so that you can produce the organic matter on the spot, for in as quick as a month from now. You're already chopping and dropping things.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh.
And we need to know how to make the best use of the resources we have, right? So of course, ideally we messing up the words. Ideally, we want to have the whole soil covered, but if you don't have enough organic matter, it's better to have a very well mulched nest around the trees than to have your organic matter like loosely scattered around the whole field. And then you use green covers for the rest of the field. So we have another comment from just some dude. He's just some dude. Now I got his name. He said, we only get 100 frost-free days where I live. Where's that, man? Is it like Greenland or something? Where do you live? I dream to one day have a large, small-scale urban market garden. That was complex. Because you want to have a large, small scale. Okay, it's a large, small scale urban market garden. Many fruit plants are unable to do well due to the cold plant hardiness climate zone. Yeah, man, you're gonna have to work with hard fruit tree. You need this is important. We need to work with stuff that grows in our place. So that's the first thing, right? You need to have plants that are well adapted to that sort of climate. But of course, when you work with agroforestry systems, just the fact that when you start working with multi-layered systems and you have those emergent plants, emergent stratum plants, those high stratum plants, they protect the medium and low stratum from frost. So here in Brazil, for example, we've got, of course, the colder regions here, they will get like 1 frost a year or 2 frosts a year or something like that. And it's a serious problem with coffee in some regions because it will burn out the coffee completely. And when you have those emergent species or high stratum species with coffee, then you drastically reduce the damage done by frost because you have that protection, right? That blanket over everything. So you should definitely be working with multi-stratum systems, using the emergent timberwood trees to open up a canopy above your fruit tree so that you have that protection from frost, and of course use fruit trees adapted to that. But tell us where you're from. Where is it that you are, man? Where you only get 100 frost-free days? That's crazy. Or you maybe just move to a tropical climate, man.
When we're working with multi-strata, agroforestry systems, we're talking about diverse weather. Your main crop can get protection from diverse weathers, and that means frost, that means hail, like our friend said here, but that also means like drought and heat as well, right? So when you got that ecosystem protecting what would be your main crop, it's all sorts of diverse weather, heavy rains and hail, things like that as well. So you're actually able to produce a little bit more than on your conventional system. So you can challenge that a little bit. Obviously, like Felipe said, you want to be producing what grows in your area. You already know that grows there. But with agroforestry systems, you can actually hope for a little bit more. So sure, you have your main crop on something that's really solid, something that your region has proved and everything as your main cash crop. But the cool thing about agroforestry, or maybe if you're homesteading, you can risk it for a biscuit. You could use this theory. So you plant things that that goes well. You plant things that you think might go well. Well, actually, I think this might go well. And you can plant something that I wish that it went well, But these are like bonuses if they come, because you've got your main crop and that's a guarantee. Everything is being designed around the main crop. But you can actually be cheeky and actually plant something that you think goes well, and then something that you wished, that you hoped went well.
Exactly.
And because you've got your main crop, and that's got your back on your expenses.
Yeah, I'm gonna use my example. Like I plant. I'm always putting burying into the soil like plum seeds, apple seeds, peach seeds. I know they're not even gonna sprout, but I'm doing it anyway just because you never know, man. Maybe you win that genetic lottery and find a seed that somehow will sprout, but it never does. But we can always try, man. And like Gennaro said, I think this is very important, right? Like have a rock solid choice of crops which you are relying on. Like I would never tell you to rely to try to make a banana system and try to sell bananas, because that's obviously never going to work over there. But have a rock solid choice of crops that will work, but then always be adding those that they're like borderline, that usually they don't grow there, but they survive. So basically those species that survive, but they don't produce very well, these are the ones that will produce okay in an agroforestry system, right? And then you have those species that they usually die. So like this species just dies here in this weather. And then these you could try, just for the fun of it, but rely on those that that they will do well, and those intermediates that they survive the climate. Maybe if we create a better environment for them, they will produce better. One thing which is interesting to think about, like the agroclimatic zoning of food crops, they change over the years because the environment changes, and people create all sort of degradation, and then plants that would grow in an area don't anymore, either because of the punishing weather or because of the degraded soils. So for example, in the Brazilian northeast, in the semi-arid, we've got the best soils, and it was a region where you could produce a lot of fruit trees which are adapted to dry lands, such as cashew, such as sugar apple, mango, and all that. But even nowadays, without irrigation, people have a really hard time producing, because though they are adapted to drought, we have like 2 years without rain, and then it's hard for the plants to survive. But once you start working with the agroforestry system and you create that better environment with a higher air humidity, with a soil profile which allows plants to reach for water in the underground, and which stores more water, then suddenly you're able to grow those plants that your neighbor cannot. So this is the idea. Yeah, I think just some dude left because he never answered where he's from, but I'm curious. I would like to know. So this is an interesting thing that Abid Ali said. He said, "Explain jujube fruit tree." What do you mean explain jujube? I don't even know what that is, man. How am I going to explain it? Do you know jujube? I've heard of it, but I don't really know it. Do you know that, Gennaro?
I thought it sounds like
jujube tree. I know. Jujuba in Brazil is like this candy thing that's got these different colors and all. Gareth is asking, what is the main difference between pruning fruit trees and service? Guys, you guys are asking all the questions. It's almost like, I was writing the ebook today, and it's almost like you're asking the questions and I already answered in the ebook. So this is a good sign. Gareth asked, what is the main difference between pruning fruit trees and service trees? Well, yeah, you want to take that, Gennaro, or go on?
I was just going to shout out Gareth. Yo, hello, man. Thanks for being around.
So
I can do still.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, well,
I'll
see,
compliment later.
Yeah, sure. I mean, fruit trees, you know, there's that time where you come in once or twice a year, you know, and this is something we'll be discussing with Gareth privately in the Patreon with the consultancy crew. You know, sometimes people think, you know, pruning is to like prune it radically always, and then you know there is annual pruning to produce more. You know, you prune so that you can produce more, not so that you can set things back and reset things so you can, you know, harvest in a couple of years from now with all fresh new trees. So there is like periodically yearly pruning, sometimes twice a year. With service crops, you know, there's many different types of cycles. Really, you want to get the optimum where, you know, you don't want to be letting that service crop necessarily spend energy on producing seed and producing flower, you know, because then it stops producing biomass, you know. So at the optimal stage of growth, it's just before that point where it starts investing its energy in flowering and seeds and things like that. So you want to give it time to recover from the last chop, to, you know, replenish its reserves, the root stock reserves, so that when you cut it, it does resprout. So it needs to be, you know, you need to wait for the right time. But just before, you know, things start wanting to invest, you know, in flowering and seeding and things like that, it's a good time to chop and drop and let it come again, as a general rule.
Yeah, so I was paying attention to the Jujube Wolfbird is explaining. But yeah, one way which I like to think about it is like, first we got to understand what the purpose is, right? So like you said, when you're pruning a service plant, you can be more radical with it, right? So the reason for that is because you want as much organic matter as you can from that tree, right? That's your main goal for a service tree. You want it to produce as much organic matter as you can. So the idea is, there is a rule in plant pruning which states that the more radical the pruning is, the more organic matter the plant produces. And basically it's actually like this. If you get a branch, I was trying to draw it, but then I kind of lost track, but I'm gonna kind of draw it here just for you guys to have an idea. So just picture this branch here. Can you see it? I don't think it's gonna work. No, never mind, it's not gonna work. But just picture a branch of the plant. Like if you cut it really close to the insertion, where it inserts in the trunk, and you prune it there, leaving just a couple of leaves in the branch, that's going to trigger a major resprout from the plant, and it's going to produce a really long branch in response to that. If you prune only the tip of the branch, it's not going to create that really long sprout. It's going to resprout a lot more discreetly. So for service crops, we want to manage them just like we manage pasture. We cut 90% of it, give it enough time to rest so it can replenish its reserves, right? And then once it's got a full-blown canopy again, we'll go there and just take it all down again, right? So this is a general rule. And then for fruit trees, of course, you're not going to do that. Otherwise you get no fruit. So for fruit trees, you want to produce fruit. So you actually want to have a balanced a well-balanced canopy throughout the whole growing period. For many fruit trees, there are other trees where you can be radical, those trees that only produce in the new shoots. And this is going to be a difference as well. You know, there are species which they only produce in the new shoots that they produce that year. So that's where they're going to set flower. And then you have species which produce in the wood, like soursop, like jaboticaba, like jackfruit. So you need wood for it to bear fruit properly. And then you have those species that will produce fruit in the branches that they produced last year. So you need to understand which sort of plant you're talking about. So you want to stimulate those productive branches. But then there is one important rule which goes for any fruit tree, is that flowering buds, they are created when you have an accumulated, when you accumulate sap, right? So, and then sap will be transported in the tree at a faster pace in vertical branches, right? So vertical branches are not good for sap accumulation, but then branches that are more horizontal, they're good for sap accumulation, because sap in a horizontal branch will travel slower, so they will accumulate in the small buds. And this, when you accumulate sap, you can turn that bud into it can become a flowering bud. So as a general rule, you want your fruit trees to have a bit more of an open canopy and have lateral branches more than upward branches. That's why those branches that grow really fast and upward, they're called, how do they call it in English? There's a name for them. In Brazil, we call them
suckers, I think.
Suckers, yes.
Suckers, yeah.
I like the Brazilian name better, because we call them thieves, because yeah, or ladrão, because we also call them ladrão.
We're finally getting all the terms, all the English terms between you and me.
We're gonna get there eventually.
We're finally getting all the terms.
So yeah, this is one general rule, and then aerated canopy. And I also like to talk about the leaf to wood ratio. And Gareth showed us a picture of his avocado trees, which they have a lot of wood without need. Think of wood as the roads in your city or in your state or in your country, right? Wood is the road, you know, through which things are transported. If you can transport the same amount of things with less road, the better, because it's less expensive. The more roads you have, the more expenses you have. So like if you have like 500 kilos of wood and only like 300 kilos of leaves in the plant, but maybe you could have only 200 kilos of wood and you would be able to have the same amount of leaves. It's better to have less wood and more leaves. Does that make sense, guys? You want to have just enough wood so that you can transport properly to all of the canopy. But then when you think of those old trees in your grandmother's backyard, you could see that it had a really large canopy, but the amount of wood required to support that is a lot. You could probably have the same amount of canopy in a much smaller tree, just because it would be branched out more intelligently if we prune it right. So need to keep low structure on figs and cut back since they fruit on new wood. There you go. Water sprouts.
No, our friend.
What's ripening?
Our friend was from Canada.
Water sprouts, man.
Yo, our friend, just some, you know, just some dude. He was from Canada. He replied there. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. That's such a cool name. I wish I lived in a city with such a cool name. Saskatchewan.
Next thing you know, there are those underground forests out there.
What?
You know how in Canada they have all the underground like shops and like communities and cities?
No.
For when there's heavy heavy snow for many months in the year, so it's all underground, right?
That's
Yeah,
a
I
good
don't doubt
idea
them
to
to have
have
the underground forest
underground forest.
and then down there it's cool. Everyone's just t-shirts and everything's cool.
Yeah. I'm just waving at people on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, so we've done this live on the Monday and Tuesday. We spoke about planting by seed, right? Here we've touched up on the nests, a little bit of pruning, right? There's a spacing, something we could touch on. Spacing, deciding on the spacing of your fruit system. You know, are you gonna have rows of biomass production in the center in between trees? You know, that could alter, you know, because, you know, canopies touching as well. You maximize in that way, but, you know, if you have a little bit of light coming in, you can produce a lot of biomass in the center as well. So a lot of choices to be made in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the topic of planting by seed is pretty interesting. It's something I wanted to touch upon. So the idea of, you know, let's talk about a bit about the advantages of planting by seed and about grafting. I think we could talk about a bit about grafting and why we like to plant by seeds, what the advantages are, and, you know, how do we take advantage of the benefits of each practice, right? Of having grafted plants, which will have like specific variety of plant, you know, the known quality, standard production, early production, and all that, and then get the benefits of having the seed, which will have a more robust root system. Do you want to talk a bit about the seed, like the advantages of planting by seed, and why we are so keen on always having seeds planted directly into the soil?
Yeah, it's really down to the root stock information. You know, once you plant it by seed, you know, that pivot, it goes, you know, shoots straight down, and, you know, and it really gives the plant so much more resistance when it has the opportunity to develop its seed on the spot. When you got it in those seedling bags, more often than not, you know, it hits the bottom and then it twirls around, you know, and then after, what we have to do, we have to prune that twirly thing off. A lot of people don't, and then, you know, they're gonna suffer. The tree's gonna suffer for the rest of its life. So what we like to do when we do get the seedlings, you know, leave 2-3 fingers at the bottom, very sharp machete, cut it all off to give an opportunity for that seed, for that root to resprout, you know, in the right directions. You know, planting by seed, man, you're able to plant a lot more economic as well. Economically, for you to plant by seed is so much more viable. So you're able to plant in higher density and actually be able to select afterwards which ones were the best ones, you know. And economically you can do that. You know, I can plant 100 seeds of jackfruit, but if I'm going to plant seedlings, and if I'm going to pay whatever $10 each, then I cannot plant 100, you know, seedlings in order to select and necessarily prune them down. So we're in peace of, you know, when you're planting by seed, you're able to have much denser plantation going on, and then, you know, you let the competition happen, you know, the warm competition, all that, and you're able to select then which are the ones, you know, that was chosen, you know, and so important to plant in high density, because, you know, just sometimes just a meter away, you've planted it here, and in high density, I mean, you can plant every meter, every 30 centimeters, you know, in a row. So sometimes, you know, here, your seedling didn't go well, but the one next to it, just a meter away, were done fantastic. So we're very ignorant to think that we know where that tree belongs. You know, we're like, you know, we have paid, because you've paid expensive now for the seedling, and I've paid expensive, and, you know, damn you, you're gonna grow here. You know, that whole attitude where, you know, why isn't it growing? But I've paid for it to grow, and I've sprayed everything, and I've manured it, and damn you, you're not growing. sometimes it just wasn't the place for him. And when we planted it by seed just next to him right there, it's being real vigorous and it just worked out nicely. So you're able to really select the best ones, right? And going back to that rootstock information, so sometimes when, you know, if you don't get the right rootstock, it might not retain the amount of energy and water, basically, because sometimes you plant a tree by seed and it gets one information of rootstock. Sometimes if you plant it by cuttings, it's a different information of rootstock. You know, you get lateral rootstocks from cuttings mainly, and by seed, you know, you can get that pivot shooting down, and that nice healthy pivot will, you know, depending on the plant, will actually store water, you know, and donate this water to others when in need in the drought. But you only get this kind of rooting information when planted by seed. You know, it's such a vast topic, but, you know, I mainly love planting by seed to get that wicked rootstock, and, you know, so I can plant in high density at very low costs and be able to select the best ones.
Cool. Yeah, that's the idea. Wolfbird is asking about the ideal biomass setup, chickpea down crop line. Look, of course, it depends on your climate, man. You basically want to find the plants that will produce as much biomass as you can. Here in the tropics, we use a lot of grass. Over there, because then we've got perennial grass here, which we can cut, you know, from 6 to 12 times a year. So it's a pretty neat setup in which you can be cutting grass and, you know, mulching to the side. Gennaro uses a lot of Mombasa grass. I personally don't, because I live in a much drier region, so I don't have the luxury of having grass throughout the whole year. And so I rely a lot on pigeon pea, prickly pear, and, you know, chickpea is pretty cool as a cover crop, but it's not going to produce the sort of organic matter that you want to actually mulch.
Volume-wise.
So we need to think of two things, right? We need to think of organic matter producers, and then we need to think of the green cover crops, right? Like we mentioned before, you want to have your soil covered with organic matter and your organic matter covered with green crops. Chickpea will serve this purpose of covering a green crop. In your region, what I think should work, I don't know how much it rains over there, but I imagine it's little. You probably should be using annual grasses and maybe some legumes associated with it. And, you know, you could do a rotation in between your rows of trees, between annual grasses and legumes, and then you could have winter species and summer species. You could vary them, but ideally you want to have living plants on all the area all the time. You said you are in zone 9A, or is it 9B? I don't remember. You mentioned, yeah, 9B. So I guess 9B is not so cold, right? 9A is colder. So maybe you can even get some perennial grasses in there. I don't know how cold does it get in Sacramento. Let's see, zone 9A. We're not used to these terms here in Brazil because we don't use this sort of notation. So I'm researching to see what it's all about.
You know, on the biomass, it's great when you have, you know, also those perennial plants that can take a beating, that are great for resprouting, because, you know, certain plants grow fast, but, you know, they don't respond well to pruning. So the ones that do are the usual suspects that, you know, then you can really just chop down with no fear, and, you know, it's going to resprout. You know, pigeon peas do that marvelously. They really take a lot of beating. You know, if you come off and if you just break it off with your hand as well, it's going to resprout. But, you know, it's not one of those things that if I break it wrongly and then, you know, it's only a pigeon pea. So you can come in and break them off and really quick, if you know, it's quite practical in that way. In the same ways, eucalyptus can take a lot of beating, not in its first year, it's very fragile in its first year, but once it's established, it can take a lot of beating. And when I say beating, I mean radical pruning, you know, regular, you know, every 40 days, you know, every 35 days in the right time of the year. So, I mean, when we're talking about the setup as well, ideally, you know, if you have the labor, if you have the machinery or the setup, you know, we love to have that emergent plant that produces that biomass. Eucalyptus is the usual suspect, Acacia mangium, you know, many trees. And they're the ones that produce even more, you know, the ones that are mature, those 3-4-year-old eucalyptus, they're so vigorous producing that matter. So you actually want to structure, like, you can use your stratum to have your biomass set up as well, not only as ground layer and low layer crops, but, you know, also as high emergent trees, or, you know, depending on what your main crop is, your other stratums can all be service crops for biomass production, things like bananas, you know, because we're talking about a lot of legumes and a lot of grasses and things like that. But, you know, let's not forget about the mother and father, at least in our tropical climate. You know, the banana and eucalyptus are the ones, you know, the mother and father, I would put it, even though I can't state that, you know, elephant grass and Mombasa grass doesn't produce as much. They do, but, you know, it's all different information. And ideally, as a setup, you have, you know, different biomass production in stratas of the forest as well.
Yeah, exactly. But then you got to figure out what
like
works for you, man. Because I mean, if you're over there in
retains
zone
water.
9A, now you're in zone 9B actually, which you will get, at least from what I saw, you get temperatures, minimum temperatures ranging from -3 to -1. So that will kill off quite a bunch of plants. So you really need to figure out what grows there for that produces as much organic matter as you can. And in the Mediterranean climate in Portugal, we were highly successful with a few tree species, which were Casuarina. What was the other one? That Grevillea robusta. I forgot the name in English. I mean, that's the scientific name. Something wood, plum wood, or something like that.
We use a lot of prickly pears as well for cold weathers. It works as well, right?
Prickly pears work. You got to find the right varieties for that. I understand it should be pretty dry over there as well, since it's a Mediterranean climate. So,
and it retains water, right?
Never forget to plant those annual grasses, right, in the right season, the right time. Do the annual grasses with legumes. You know, do that seed mix of annual grasses with legumes to feed your fruit trees. One good way to think about it is this: just figure out what people are giving to the animals to eat. I like to say whatever is good for the animals to eat, it's good for the soil as well, because when you're giving food to the animals, you're basically feeding their microorganisms in the stomach and intestine. So just silky oak. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So you're just
usually farmers are also looking to feed the animals with things that are very vigorous, that grow fast as well. So if they're giving it to animals in the sense that it most likely produces the kind of volume that the farmer needs as well. So that works as well.
Exactly.
Volume.
I think it's about time we start wrapping it up, man. Guys, if you have any further questions, we can take a couple more, I guess. We should continue next week with some more content about other types of production agroforestry systems. We're closing up this week with the fruit system. We're going to have this ebook launched on this weekend. for members of our patron community. So if you haven't joined yet, it's a great opportunity to do so. We're going to be hosting a webinar on, when is it tonight? On Saturday night. So whoever joins before that will have the opportunity to participate in that webinar, where we're going to discuss the topics of fruit production, that's in the ebook. So we're giving that webinar as a bonus to complement the material in the ebook. So it's a pretty good opportunity to join the community and take part with the other 30 patrons that we have there. And it's also, it's really fun. There's a lot of conversation going on. We have a Discord group where they participate, they can exchange ideas. Besides, of course, all the extra material we make available to the community, the monthly Q&As that we host with them and all that. So it's a good opportunity.
It's been really exciting in late, where we've so much interaction within the patron community. And, this is the right time to talk about it, because, we've got the 10 people watching it here live on YouTube, and you're the public, because, you're stuck with us. You're the ones that will be interested in what we're doing in the Patreon community. Saying that, we still like to keep, the core of our content free, like we've got the free course, quite a nice full course there. It's basic, but it's quite a nice full course if you haven't checked it out. We are working on the 2.0, and we will be keeping it free, right? So, besides all of this interaction, if you can see it as well, it's a way to support the channel. The Patreon platform is a way also to support the channel and to keep us bringing the best free content, right? So, we've got the first year that's $7.90 already involved in a lot of stuff. And, if $7.90 for you is viable, and it's not gonna, you're not gonna miss it that much, you will have a lot of rewards on the other side, and maybe you're out in somewhere where $7.90 sounds more like $100, depending on your currency. So we appreciate that. And don't worry, we will be keeping, the core of our content, free. But it's just an interaction, and it's just a way of you guys being closer and, being able to ask. And the kind of people it attracts are the kind of people who are really going for it, all the way from homestead people to professional farmers. But, it's the same energy. Everyone's really going for it, working with principles. So it's a great community to be a part of.
Cool. So that's it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. People on Instagram, people on YouTube over here. I tend to look here because that's where the chat is, but I need to remember the camera is here.
Smash the like button if you haven't.
Okay, smash the like button. We only have 10 likes. That's not acceptable. We have 11 viewers right now, so we need to have at least 11 likes. So if you haven't yet, hit the like button. Let me see that count go up. It usually works. Come on, before leaving, guys.
It's cool. Well, the video will be available, and other content that we produce, if you share with your friends, that's great. That's also other ways you can be supporting us, keep us coming back and interacting with you guys. Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Cheers,
Gareth,
everyone. We'll catch each other in the next video.
All right. See you guys soon.
Cheers. And stream and